Every diet tribe has miracles. Every diet tribe has casualties. And every diet tribe believes the exceptions belong to the other side. Imagine spending years searching for the perfect diet. The diet that would finally explain everything. The diet that would solve your health problems, increase your energy, improve your weight, clear your mind, and maybe even extend your life. Now imagine finding someone online who appears to have already figured it all out. They seem healthy, confident, passionate, and they seem absolutely certain. They tell you exactly what they eat, exactly what they avoid, exactly why everyone else is wrong. And for a while, it all makes sense. But what happens when people begin treating dietary influencers like prophets? What happens when personal experience becomes universal advice? And what happens when the stories that don't fit the narrative start appearing? Welcome back to Carnivore Found Me, researching how modern food changed us. Today's facts can be tomorrow's fallacies. And sometimes the most important questions aren't about food at all. They're about human nature. Because throughout history, people have searched for answers. And whenever uncertainty exists, someone eventually arrives claiming they have found the solution. Nutrition may be one of the most powerful examples of that phenomenon. One expert says plants are healing. Another says plants are harming us. One influencer says fruit is nature's perfect food. Another says fruit is little more than sugar. One community points to their success stories. Another community points to theirs. And somewhere in the middle, millions of people are trying to figure out who to believe. The deeper I looked into this world, the more I noticed something strange. The arguments were different. The foods were different. The communities were different. But the pattern was often exactly the same. Every group had testimonials. Every group had transformations. Every group had believers. And every group had people whose stories didn't end the way anyone expected. That doesn't prove any particular diet is good or bad, but it does raise an uncomfortable question. If a diet works for one person, why does it sometimes seem to fail another? And this is where the story becomes far more interesting than fruit, vegetables, or meat, because the real investigation isn't about food. It's about certainty. For years, fruitarian influencers attracted audiences by promoting an idea that sounded incredibly appealing. Eat the foods nature intended. Keep things simple. Return to what humans supposedly evolved to eat, and health will follow. For some followers, the results appeared remarkable. Weight loss, energy, improved digestion. Stories of transformation spread rapidly online. But not every story followed that path. One example frequently discussed in fruitarian communities was Agnieszka Kirchner, a Polish influencer known for promoting fruitarian principles. At one point she believed she had found a powerful path toward health. Yet despite her beliefs and lifestyle, she later faced a diagnosis of ovarian cancer. Now it's important to be very clear. Her diagnosis does not prove fruitarianism caused the disease. Cancer is complex. Many factors influence cancer risk, and no credible evidence establishes a direct causal relationship in her specific case. But her story challenged a belief that exists in many dietary communities. The belief that finding the right diet makes a person somehow immune to serious illness. And that wasn't the end of the story. Another well-known figure in raw food and fruitarian circles was Mango Wadzak. For years, he became known for promoting a fruit-based lifestyle. Many followers viewed him as living proof that the approach worked. When news of his death spread through online communities, questions followed. Again, his death does not prove fruitarianism was responsible, but it forced many followers to confront something uncomfortable. If health is complicated, can any diet truly guarantee protection from disease? And this is where things become even more interesting, because these questions weren't limited to fruitarians. Not even close. Across the vegan and vegetarian world, similar patterns emerged. Tim Sheaf became known as a vegan advocate and influencer. For years, he publicly promoted veganism. Then something unexpected happened. He began discussing health struggles. Eventually, he moved away from the dietary philosophy he once championed. Supporters argued his experience was unique. Critics argued it proved veganism was flawed. But perhaps both groups missed the bigger lesson. One person's outcome doesn't automatically predict another person's outcome. Meanwhile, other influencers remained committed to plant-based eating and appeared to thrive. Fully Raw Christina remains one of the most recognizable examples. Years later, she continues promoting a fruit-focused raw lifestyle. Her story stands in direct contrast to narratives claiming such diets inevitably fail. And that's exactly why this investigation matters. Because every community can point to success stories. Every community can point to failure stories. And every community often focuses on whichever stories support its existing beliefs. Then I started looking at the carnivore movement. And surprisingly, the same pattern appeared again. Many carnivore advocates report dramatic improvements. Weight loss, reduced inflammation, improved blood sugar control, relief from autoimmune symptoms. Some describe the experience as life-changing. But not every story follows the same path. Social media creator Eve Catherine publicly discussed being hospitalized with kidney stones after following an extremely restrictive carnivore approach. She herself connected her experience to excessive protein intake. Does that mean carnivore eating causes kidney stones? No. That conclusion would go beyond the available evidence. But it does illustrate something important. Even among people pursuing the same dietary strategy, outcomes can vary dramatically. Then there was Alex Cannon, a carnivore influencer whose death sparked discussion throughout online communities. Reports indicated genetic heart failure was involved. Not proof against carnivore eating. Not proof in favor of carnivore eating. Simply another reminder that human health rarely follows a simple script. And yet, despite all these examples, many people continue searching for a dietary prophet. Someone who can eliminate uncertainty. Someone who can provide a simple answer. Someone who can tell us exactly what to eat. Why? Because uncertainty is uncomfortable. The truth is much harder. Human beings are different. Different genetics, different environments, different activity levels, different medical histories, different metabolic conditions, different food tolerances. What helps one person may not help another. What heals one person may harm another. And nowhere is that reality more obvious than when we look at insulin resistance. A fruit-heavy diet may work well for certain individuals, yet someone struggling with blood sugar regulation may respond very differently. Likewise, a carnivore approach that helps one person manage symptoms may create challenges for someone else. Reality doesn't always fit neatly into social media posts, and that's where influencers can unintentionally create problems. There's a major difference between saying, "This worked for me," and saying, "This should work for you." The first statement shares experience. The second assumes similarity, and similarity cannot be assumed. Not in medicine, not in nutrition, not in biology. Good health leaves clues, and one clue appears repeatedly throughout this investigation. The healthiest voices often speak with humility. They acknowledge uncertainty. They acknowledge limitations. They acknowledge that individual responses vary. Meanwhile, the loudest voices often project certainty, absolute certainty, the kind of certainty that attracts followers, builds communities, and sometimes creates something that begins to resemble a belief system. The food changes, but the psychology remains remarkably similar. Questions become discouraged. Critics become outsiders. Success stories become proof. Failure stories become exceptions. And before long, a discussion about nutrition starts looking suspiciously like tribalism. But nutrition shouldn't be tribal, because biology isn't tribal. Your body doesn't care about online debates. Your body doesn't care about dietary labels. Your body only cares about outcomes, and outcomes are often personal. That's why one of the most valuable skills a person can develop isn't learning what an influencer eats. It's learning how to think critically, learning how to evaluate evidence, learning how to ask questions, learning how to observe your own results. Success leaves clues, but so do failures. And perhaps the biggest clue of all is this. Every dietary tribe can point to success stories. Every dietary tribe can point to failure stories. And every dietary tribe tends to ignore the stories that don't fit the narrative. Maybe that's the real lesson. Not that fruitarianism is dangerous. Not that veganism is dangerous. Not that carnivore is dangerous. But that certainty itself may be dangerous, especially when it convinces us to stop asking questions. Today's facts can be tomorrow's fallacies, which is why curiosity may be more valuable than certainty. Because the moment we believe we've found the one universal answer, we stop looking for better questions. And in nutrition, the better question may not be, what should everyone eat? The better question may be, what works for me? Be the CEO of your own health, not because you know all the answers, but because nobody else can fully understand your body better than you. Researching how modern food changed us. I'm your host, and before you go, I want to ask you something. Have you ever tried a diet that worked incredibly well for someone else, but didn't work for you? Leave a comment below. I read every single one, and your experience may help shape our next investigation. Because in our next documentary, we're going to explore another uncomfortable question. What happens when nutrition science changes its mind? And why do yesterday's experts sometimes become today's cautionary tales? Success leaves clues, and sometimes the biggest clues are hidden inside the things we thought were settled.